What is up, Facebook world? This is Kimberly and Connor Tracy tuning in from Big Red SEO. We wanted to come live with you guys today and kind of talk about two very, very important subjects that we get asked advice, mentorship, guidance. We get SOS phone calls, and it always winds up being either about spam or security of a website. And unfortunately, on the flip side of the security, it's usually not the good news of, hey, I want to be proactive about my website as well as the security in my website. And instead, it's usually around somebody getting something compromised or being very vulnerable. And then they find out that their security for their website is not up to par. So today we actually wanted to drill into Connor's world and Connor's brain because these are the two areas he plays the most, right? It's one of the unique things about Big Red SEO in the fact that we work together and we're a dynamic duo. But the two areas that he has years and years of experience on is spam and security of a website because he ran a web hosting company for, was it 18 plus years? Close? 17 plus?
Well, I guess it could have been 18, but it was 17 anyway, but yeah.
So he was actually, before I think he actually created the company, he was in his garage actually doing web hosting services. And I think it was like a forum, wasn't it? Did you manage a forum?
Yeah.
Or before it was called a forum?
Before the web was the web, I ran a BBS, which is bulletin board systems. This is back in the early 90s, essentially, but that was before the web became the web.
Yeah. And
we had a pretty large forum and bulletin board system back then. People from all over the world, Australia and New Zealand, would dial in with their phone to pick up the mail, to then read it offline, respond to messages, and then send it back to the system. Then I had a satellite connection and a FIDO network, but that's all... Like I said, that's all before the web became the web. And then all of a sudden, oh, the internet. Well, maybe it's a fad. No, it wasn't a fad.
No, it was not a fad at all. But we wanted to tune in for you guys and kind of talk about this. So, Connor, let's dive into spam because we wind up getting spam ourselves, right? We have clients call us and be like, hey, I'm getting bombarded from inquiries for my website. I don't know what's going on, or just general emails, right?
Yeah.
So let's touch base about, like, explain if somebody doesn't, which I don't think this is the thing, but education, right? If nobody knows what spam is, let's explain that because it's not a tin can with meat in it or processed meat, right? But then also let's talk about it. Like, let's talk about some of the conversations.
Yeah. Back in 1974, actually, it was either 74, 76, or 78. I can't remember which one it was, but it was Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh, gosh. That's actually a really good movie.
The spam song and everything else, but nonetheless, spam, what it is now is... it's all just your junk mail that you come in. It's unsolicited mail that comes into your mailbox.
Yeah.
And some of the times it's solicited mail. So you've subscribed to a newsletter and you just get hit with tons and tons of newsletter messages or shopping cart reminders, every hour, every 2 hours, or whatever.
Yeah.
So all of those can be classified as spam in the grand scheme of things. But basically it's any junk mail that you really don't want. And over the years, there's a lot of systems that have been put in place to kind of do word detection and automatically remove it. And when I ran the hosting company years ago, we had different filters in there to help detect some of the mail spam and block it before it ever got to the users.
Right.
So things like there's whitelisting that's involved, but we used to use something called Spam Assassin, and that took care of a good 70% of stuff that went on. And then there's mail exchange and mail experts and stuff like that help kind of clean up a little bit further than that. So different softwares. But these days, you can still get web hosting and you can get mail included with your web hosting.
Yeah.
But generally, you're still going to get a lot of spam. So my own personal recommendation is sign up with Gmail, the gSuite, the Google Suites. I'll put a link in the comments. For our affiliate program, we get $5 if you sign up. But essentially, the Gmail or Google themselves, they have an awesome spam filter. It detects so much stuff.
Right.
Sometimes can be a little overprotective.
A little overprotective. We actually have a client that they go into the spam. Ironically, she sent an email this morning or yesterday, I'm not too sure, and it did not go into spam.
Hey,
so this was like,
progress.
I think, email 12, 13. Finally, it did not go into spam.
We keep
Super
clicking the
excited.
button, not
Super
spam.
Excited. Yeah.
You know, we both do that. But no, Google has an awesome spam filter set up.
Yeah.
Apple Mail does too. Hotmail, not so much.
Not so much.
But using
AOL, not so much.
AOL, not so much. But using one of those enterprise systems generally is going to take care of quite a bit of the spam. But that only covers the mail that's coming, you know, if somebody sends it to sales@yourdomain.com and they spam out to a bunch. They'll send it to sales, accounts, orders, owner,
Right.
webmaster, you name it, they just dump it all in there. And from a computer software, it just runs. They you know, there's no checking. They don't care whether the mail actually gets delivered or not. You know, you buy bulk mail, you're buying 1 million email addresses, and you just spam them all.
Yeah.
So that's essentially how that part works. But no, there's definitely things within your website you can put on. You know, contact forms. We use contact forms all the time. You know, you should be using them to qualify your leads and things like that within your site. But people enter in spam in the contact forms.
Yep.
And it's one of the big complaints that we get from clients and potential clients, that they're getting a lot of mail, a lot of spam through their contact form. But there are solutions. You know, there's a thing called a CAPTCHA, CAPTCHA,
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, PTCHA. But yeah, so there's a CAPTCHA basically.
We should have had a contest for that.
I know. You've used them in the past. You know, either it says there's a checkbox for I am not a robot, or there's a set of numbers and letters that you have to enter in.
Yeah.
Or, you know, click all the pictures that have a bus in them.
Right.
You know, so they're the different formats essentially.
Yeah.
But Google has one called Google reCAPTCHA. And that's usually the one that you've seen, which is I am not a robot, and the you know, click all the street signs and stuff like that. Essentially, this is the website if it shows up on my system, which it's not. But basically, if I can find it here, there. That's the one that you've probably seen. It's the I am not a robot system, and basically it's offered by Google. You can run that through any of your contact forms, any of your comments feeds on your websites. You can use that.
So like blog comments?
You can also use it on the login forms. So if you're in WordPress, it's got a pretty good integration there with the WordPress system. So hearing a truck back up outside.
Fine. Carry on. Carry on. Hunter like just went squirrel. He's like, who was that?
Well, you know, the system didn't work for me, and then it's like, so anyway, the reCAPTCHA systems, you can put them onto WordPress, Joomla, Magento, any of the other systems out there, and it does a really good job of stopping spam. These days, the way it's set up, version 3 is the one we recommend to use. But that no longer has the little checkbox saying I am a robot.
Right.
What it actually does, it monitors your browser history if you're in Chrome. And based on your history and how you're moving around a website, it'll just automatically send the form for you. If it notices irregularities or you're clicking back quite a bit or things like that, it might have the button saying, please verify. But for the most part, it's inobtrusive at this point.
Right.
So that's one system that we use. From the spam end of things, that's really the biggie.
Yeah, and the thing to focus on too, so if you do have a contact form, we've talked about this before, but it's really important to make sure that you don't just put name, address, email, message, right? So you can actually qualify through your contact form by asking questions. In the workaround, I wanted to say hack, but that's not the right word with the subjects that we're talking about today. But kind of one of the workarounds to get people to stop filling out stuff so much is to have multiple different questions that you answer, and to have it, whether it's one, you do a text form, right, where you ask a question open-ended, they can type something in. Maybe a next one is a drop down, and then another one's a radio button, right? So like those that are like, well, one, the softwares that are crawling the page, they're not going to do all of those, right? You can make all of those required, and that actually stops people from not being able to not fill them out. So if a software just went through and filled out 3 of the 7 things because they're not required, you're going to get hit with spam, right?
Right.
But if you make everything required and then you make the end user do different things, then all of a sudden the spam reduces a lot, right? Because those that are like filling out forms, we haven't verified this, but if I was to make an assumption, which I don't do a whole lot, I would actually say based on the spam that comes in, there's usually always a link involved. So that link is either compromised and they want to put a virus on your computer or take something over, right? And or it's typically somebody that's offering SEO services or some kind of link building service, and they're trying to get you to click on the link so that person can say, oh, you had this visitor come visit your website, right? That's an assumption that I would say happens just based on the theory of us doing this 10 years and seeing that. The other area is that they want the link to be on the website. And a lot of times people would just approve comments and not really pay attention. They're just thinking, oh, this person says that they love my blog, even though they didn't say anything about the blog subject, right? Oh, and by the way, they have a URL. Okay, they liked my blog. They left a comment. So I will share their link. And then before you know it, you're actually building somebody else's SEO, or that link is compromised and you're telling end users that come to your website, hey, it's okay, click this. It's safe. And in reality, it's not safe. It hasn't been verified.
Yeah, it's a black hat method. It's called Web 2.0 properties. And essentially, it's a lot of the WordPress sites or Blogger and things like that.
Yep.
And they use those links to then boost up another website.
Yep.
A lot of that is caught now by Google, and they devalue quite a bit of those links, but it's still done.
It's still a process.
The services are still done.
Yeah, it's still a process. They still send the email and they still spam, right?
Yep.
So we talked about spam. So let's dive into security, right? So let's talk about that because this has been a thing since we've been in business, right, guys? While I would want to say it's more relevant now, it actually is not, right? Like security is a big deal. But Connor, let's dive in why I continue to invite different business owners here to watch.
Okay. So from the security end of things, there's a couple different things that you can do and things that have been done. My number one thing, make a backup.
Make a backup.
So no matter what happens after the fact, at least you got somewhere to get back to. So make a backup of your site before you do anything or before anything happens.
Right.
And not just your website. You know, we were talking with an accountant earlier today. Make a backup of your accounting software. Those backup files, pictures from your computer, whether you have those backed up somewhere else just in case. I've seen hard drives fail, and I've assisted with hard drive failures and things like that.
We don't assist with that anymore, though.
No. No.
We know people.
But essentially from the security end of things, a lot of web hosts don't they provide the space, and it's up to you to secure everything.
Right.
So everything's on you. The backups are on you. The making sure the software is up to date, that's on you. To make sure that spam is not being sent through your website, that's also on you.
Right.
That is how 90% of the web hosting companies operate and have operated over the last 20 years. There are a number of good hosting companies that take a more proactive approach. Where they'll pre-scan or scan files. Again, going back to my hosting company that I had, we had a program that ran every night that scanned every file on the hard disk of every server and did a heuristic scans and base 64 scans, which are usually the ways people try to hack a website. So we did all those kind of scans, and if we found something, we alerted the user, hey, we found this. We don't know exactly whether we should fix this or not, but hey, we found this. You need, let us know
action.
If you want us to do it, or if you're going to have your webmaster do it, or whatnot. But like I said, a lot of hosting companies these days don't really do that part. There's a couple, but they're few and far between. So as a result, if you're in WordPress, the system that we recommend is Wordfence. Love these guys. Hey, look, our video's still there.
So if you thought you were hiding, there's no hiding.
Yeah, I don't know if I can turn that off also. I don't think I can. No, I can't. Okay.
This is there.
But wordfence.com, it's a plugin for WordPress. I am completely thrown off by this video, so bear with me. But But no, it's a plugin used in there, and what that'll do, that actually scans every file in your website every night, scans every plugin to make sure your plugins are up to date, and if they're not, it sends you an alert. Now, their Pro version does a little bit more of the scanning. It does more file checks. They'll check your version of WordPress against the version that was released by WordPress. If the files are different, then it sends you alerts on that also. It's also got firewall utilities in there, so you can block different countries. On one of my machines, I block China and I block Turkey because I don't have any clients in that area. I never will have clients in those areas. There's no reason for those people to be able to access my server.
Right.
One of my other machines, the only place that you can access from is within the US. So putting those kind of firewalls in place, hosting companies generally don't do that anymore. And it's up to you to put software, and Wordfence is one of those softwares that will allow you to do that. The other one that's out there is called Sucuri. That one doesn't have an error with the video. Oh, look, it does. The video's down at the bottom. So these guys also, again, they have a plugin for WordPress and for Joomla, but they also do regular file scans too. So you don't have to use those softwares. You could be running any of the different machines that are out there.
Right.
So with that, they have they're mainly all paid for their scans that they do. But that'll do also the file scans. It'll do the plugin scans. It'll do the firewall scans. Not really so much on spam, but it does do some of like the JavaScript injections and things like that.
Right.
So good stuff to use. I like both of them. I use Wordfence all the time.
Yeah.
Sucuri I'll do when I'm doing when I'm digging into an issue for a client. I'll use that, and then I've other software that I've created over the years for myself. I'll use those to scan files.
Cool. So with the Wordfence, this is something somebody else can set up on their own.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and implement on their own.
Yeah, for Wordfence, go into WordPress.com, or not WordPress.com, go into WordPress in your website, your admin.
Yeah.
Go to plugins, add a plugin, search for Wordfence, and install it. Use the free version starting out. That's no problem.
Yeah.
If you want to get more features, use the paid version.
And by filters or features, you mean like filtering out different stuff, right?
Yeah, so blocking specific IP numbers, blocking specific countries, that's all done generally on the paid versions of things.
Right. So a lot of times what happens, guys, is whenever it comes down to spam and or, because this is relevant for spam too, and or those trying to get access to your website, more than likely they're out of country, right? So if you, your ideal clientele is in the US, and or you don't really have anybody out of country coming to your website, it's good to go ahead and pay the advance to kind of filter that out so you don't have that issue. However, it is important to know that if you're off on vacation at a different country, right, or if you have a friend or a relative out of country, they wouldn't be able to gain access to your website. You can lift that temporarily. So if you're out of country on vacation and you want to be able to gain access to your website, you can do that. But yeah, so it's really important, guys, to make sure that you at least take the step to kind of reduce this and proactively attempt to secure your website as best as possible. Spam, as well as those that want to compromise websites, they're not going anywhere, right? It's been around since the internet started. We try as hard as we can to make sure we can educate you guys and provide a lot of value. If you don't want to mess with it at all, you can hire this guy. He can handle it for you. We're only a phone call away with that, but it's worth actually going and taking that next step, even if it's the free account. They can kind of help you with that and filtering all that stuff out.
Yeah. But again, the number one thing before anything else, make a backup.
Yeah, it's interesting because a backup, guy, is like, say that you do get your site compromised, right? And you haven't made a backup. The only option you have is to start the website from scratch. Like there is no going in and cleaning. Like we've done that for a couple different projects. But the thing is like you don't really know where somebody's been naughty inside of a file if they already have access, and it's really not a fun thing. So definitely take the time to do it. And
I've done some big audits of websites. WordPress in general has between 3,000 and 5,000 files. I think it's closer to 5 now these days. So if you're really doing an audit within a site and a security hardening, you have to look at every single file because one of them might have an injection. Well, if you're going to pay me to look at 5,000 files, it's cheaper. It's cheaper to build a new website. So, so that's where the softwares and the scripts and the programs that we've got over the years, those come into play. You don't have to scan images and CSS files and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But if you are doing a true hardening of a system, I mean, that is really what you need to do. Once you're compromised, it's just like somebody breaking into your house. You can have...
My skin's crawling over here. He's just going into scenarios. I'm like,
Right. Well, I mean, locking the front door, we all do that. Yeah. And we all lock the windows for the most part.
Yep.
But if you forget to lock a window, when you get home, the first thing you then have to do is go around the entire house and make sure everything is locked.
Okay.
You can't just lock the one window and say it's done.
So is there anything else that you want end users to know about spam as well as security? As your wife, like, my pits are sweating, guys. Like, I'm like, let's just stop talking about the things, right? But it is important. Anything else you want to add at all?
No, I mean, the backups is kind of the key out of it. I know I keep saying it, but it's that important. Check with your web host, see if they make backups. Some of them do. A lot of them overwrite their previous backup. So,
and the other thing too is the reason why he always says backups is because a lot of people don't do it, and we wind up getting those frantic phone calls of, "Oh shit, I didn't do that thing. I didn't do that thing you told me to do, which was to make a backup, right?" And they're compromised. So
the second thing from security end of things, any of the plugins that are in your website that should be updated. Get them updated.
Don't mess around with that, guys. If you need help, you can hire us to do it, to keep it managed. Unless you have an ultimate custom website where a developer's gone in and encoded the actual site, plugins being updated is a fairly easy process. Again, make a backup before you do anything, and then make a backup every time you make the plugin, whatever plugin update, and test the website to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. But I would say driving home, just making backups. So that way, if something does happen, you don't have to freak out. You know what action you're going to be taking. So really quickly, a shout out to Terry over at Muth Motors. Thanks for tuning in, as well as Loveleen. Loveleen's a beautiful divine artist, so check her out. Casey tuned in. Casey's a huge fan and follower. Love her to bits and pieces. And then Doris. Doris is actually my mom, so she tuned in and said hello. Thank you everybody for tuning in live, as well as those that are watching on the replay. You can find this video recording located on YouTube. So if you're watching it on YouTube, hello, Connor the click button YouTube thingy.
Click YouTube.
So they have access to that.
First.
But in the most case, thanks guys for tuning in. We are hoping that this subject is bringing you value. If so, comment below. If you have questions, let us know. But in the meantime, have a beautiful weekend, and we'll chat soon.
All right, guys. Have a good one.